In this lecture, we're going to have a look at the Unity interface. If you're already familiar with the interface, you might like to skip ahead to the next lecture. Here on the screen, I've got a new project ready to be opened. When you first start up Unity, you will be faced with this window here where you have to select a location for your project and give it a name. This will then create the new project, and what it does is creates a folder on your computer named after the project name. Inside of that folder is a lot of subfolders in which your game assets will sit. Now, it's a very good idea that you don't go messing around inside of that folder. Unity uses the structure of that folder and any special files that it writes in order to operate. So the best way to interact with the files in that folder is via Unity itself. Okay, so when we first get this new project window come up, you can choose between a 3D or a 2D game. At the start in these lectures, we're going to be working with 3D. So once you've created a name and you've got a location and hit the 3D, you can then select the Create Project button. Now I've already done that, so I'll just switch back to the Unity window that I've created. Okay, so I've created this empty project for a bouncing sphere demonstration that we will do in a couple of lectures' time. So let's just have a look at the way the windows are arranged. When you first open Unity, your windows will be in a different arrangement. This is the arrangement I like to use because it's easier to see everything that's going on initially. Okay, so let's start looking at each of the different windows. First of all, we have the project window, which is down here on my view. Now, if you want to move any of your windows around, you can just grab them by the tab and you can move them to wherever you want. Now, if you want a really big view of that particular window, you can drag it off of Unity and it will create a separate window, which you can then make as large as you like. If you were then to click on Unity behind here, that window will disappear, but it's not lost to you. So that was the project window. To get it back, we can select Window from the main menu and go down to Project, which will bring it back. Now, to join that project window back up with Unity, we can drag it down the bottom, and I had it just down here, so I'm going to put it there for us. Right, so the project window lists all of the assets that are available to your game. So these are the scripts, the game objects, any animations, textures, sounds, all of the things that you might want to put into your game. Now, you might not put all of the things in the assets directory into there, but these will be available. And the top folder in the assets directory of the project is called assets. Now, you can create more folders in this area to arrange your assets as you like. So if you hit the create button, you'll see that there's a whole series of things that you can create, and one of those things is a folder. Okay, so these are the things available to our game in the project. Now, the next window that I want to show you is the hierarchy window, and I have mine set up over here. The hierarchy window lists all of the objects that are in your game. Okay, so it's like a subset of what's in the project. And as you can see, in the default 3D project, you get a camera, and you also get a directional light. Now, the camera, you can see if you select it in the hierarchy, is that it will show up in the scene. And I'll talk about navigating around in the next lecture. And we also have a light as well that we can select, and you'll see it here come up in the scene as well. Now, the scene window, while we're talking about it, shows us the world, and we're able to actually move around the scene and zoom in and out. So if I hold down the Alt key, I can drag the window around. You can also pan. If you hold down the Q key and drag your mouse, you can pan your scene up and down. And if you want to zoom in, you can use the scroll on the mouse to find objects. Now, if you want to zoom in on an object or focus on an object, you can select it in the hierarchy, put the mouse over the scene view and hit the F key, which will focus on the object and put it in the center of your view. Okay, the next window is our game window. The game window shows you what the camera is looking at. Now, if I select the hierarchy and let's just create a new object so that you can see what the camera sees, 3D object and sphere. So I've right-clicked in the hierarchy. I'm going to add a sphere. Okay, so here's the sphere, and you can see the sphere in the scene. And the sphere is actually right on top of the camera. So that's why the camera isn't looking at the sphere, as you can see in the game. If we select the camera and then just move it back a little bit, you can see that it appears here. Now, the camera itself, when it's selected in the hierarchy, shows you a camera preview. This game view is your game. So it's what your game will look like when it's running. Whereas the scene view is the way that you've set up your whole game environment. And you might have objects in your scene that can't be seen by the camera and therefore aren't appearing in your game at that particular moment. So the scene is essentially your design view, and the game is the view of your final game. Now, the last window I want to look at in this lecture is the inspector. And I always keep my inspector over here, so on the right-hand side of Unity's window. If you select any of the objects in the hierarchy, the inspector gives you a list of all of their components and properties. Now, the properties are all of the values that are stored about the particular object. So if you look at the sphere I just added, you can see that we've got a transform component at the top, and this transform component tells us where the sphere is in the world. So it has a position in the X, Y, and Z axis because we're working in a 3D environment. It has a rotation as well, and it also has a scale. And as I said, we'll look at those in the next lecture. And there's a whole bunch of other things also attached to the sphere, which again, we'll get around to looking at later. The light itself also has settings where you can make the light brighter by playing with that. You can change the intensity of the bounciness of the light's rays off of different things. And you can turn on the shadows in here as well. Okay, so that's the basic Unity window setup. And in the next lecture, I'll show you how to move objects around within the scene.